Hello everyone, welcome back to some more of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Last time, we met the journalist that was also at the scene of the crime, Write-in Mini Memo, who gave his own account, essentially saying that... Oh wait, that was... Here it is. Not only is he the one that took this picture, but he took it, if we can find the diagram, from... Well, is it from there, though? Yeah, from behind the hut, essentially. Did they show it in this diagram? No, just the culprit and victim. Okay, never mind. Whatever. Anyways, yeah. He's the one that took this picture, and... Yeah. We know he's at the scene because of the fountain pen. This is basically his because of the whole show you news symbol on it, so... Yeah, there's that. Anyways, it was during his testimony that he actually revealed something shocking. Apparently, Soseki has withheld a bit of testimony from us. Essentially, what after the incident happened, well, shortly after he heard the scream of the victim, Soseki went to go investigate and ask the victim essentially what happened. And in her dying moment, she pointed into the direction of the defendant. And when asked the reason as to why she didn't say it, why he didn't say it earlier, because he could have just remembered it wrong, but it's possible she was pointing in a slightly different direction. In other words, his memory is too unclear to be relied upon. Well, fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, we should be able to rely on it. Let's see, what else do I have to go over? Yes. In the absence of any credible argument to the contrary, we can end the trial, and we need something big to turn the tables, essentially. So, I guess with that being said, let's kind of get into this. Ray gave us her account of how events unfolded in the defendant's antechamber before the trial resumed. She told us that what happened at the precise moment Miss Brett was killed. The Englishwoman was sitting at the back of the hut, listening to what I was saying, and then, a moment later, she suddenly got to her feet, before collapsing on the floor with a knife in her back, so she was stabbed from behind. Yeah, no duh. How could Miss Brett have been stabbed in the back of a beach that was empty but for herself and Ray? Somewhere amid all the information we've gathered, there must be an answer to the question. Alright. I take it then that the defense... I take it then that the defense has nothing further to add.
So, the gallant yokel student's luck finally runs out. I can't say I'm surprised.
In that case, I am ready to deliver my final verdict on this matter. This is a crucial turning point now. If I can't establish what really happened, it's over. Where was the real culprit hiding? And how did he or she stab the victim? Well, it's actually easy to find out. First thing we gotta do is look at the crime scene photograph. As we heard from Ray's testimony, she got up from the stool at the back of the hut. Here's the stool in question, and you might think this is part of the background, but there's actually a huge vertical slit, I guess you can call it, a parting between the bamboo sheet rods, whatever. I don't know. It's been a while. Anyways, as you can see, there's a huge parting there, and if we go to the beach hut plan that was used, the victim was right here and was pointing in the general direction of the culprit. So, if we go a little bit past the culprit into a slightly different direction behind them, we see the stool in question, and right here would be the parting, which means the killer would have to be right here. In other words, it is likely that someone that was behind here could have killed the victim, because He could have just walked over, stabbed from behind, and then left. And then that's where she died. So let's say we know how, because we know where the culprit was hiding. Your Excellency, I respectfully ask you to postpone your education for the time being. Oh? To what end, counsel? The defense would like to present the court with an alternative theory. An alternative theory that can explain who the victim was actually trying to implicate with her dying gesture.
Objection! An alternative theory? Ha! None exists. Objection!
There was someone else present at the scene who could have committed the crime.
What?
And the victim, Miss Brett, tried to reveal who it was to those around her at the time. By mustering all her remaining strength and pointing a trembling finger in the killer's direction.
This is fiction. Fantasy.
Very well. As you seem so sure of yourself, counsel, I am prepared to hear your alternative theory. So, young Ryotaro Naruhodo. Yes, Your Excellency. You will present your latest theory to the court by means of this plan. At the moment the victim was stabbed, where exactly were you proposing the culprit was concealed? Easily enough. Right over here.
Take that!
Naruhodo-san would never give up, and I'm a Naruhodo now. The true culprit who fatally stabbed Miss Brett was concealed in this location here. Are you mad, counsel? You're suggesting the culprit was outside the hut?
What?
Order, order! But, student lawyer Naruhodo-san Esquire, that makes no sense at all. You've just pointed out the exact spot where I was hiding to get my scoop snap. But I didn't see any suspicious individuals floating about. I can swear to that.
Obviously, if the culprit had been outside the hut, there is no way he or she could have stabbed the victim who was inside the hut.
Actually, Prosecutor Ouchie, there is a way. And, in point of fact, the defense can provide evidence strongly suggesting that is precisely the way Miss Brett was killed. I don't know why I saw a Y there.
You're bluffing! You're bluffing, you yokel!
The defense's assertion is clearly too fantastical for the court to comprehend. You will need to give us more guidance, counsel. What piece of evidence corroborates your theory that the victim was stabbed outside the hut? Easy, the photograph.
Take that!
The original photographic print of the crime scene? Yes, it's clearly visible in this print. The trace of the fatal thrust that was delivered from outside the beach hut.
Objection! Do you take us for fools? There's no hint of any such thing.
I'm not sure that everyone present would agree. Someone, at least, appears to have noticed what it is that I'm referring to. Counsel, once again I must call on you to be explicit for the court. Where in this photographic print is the trace of the stabbing, which you claim took place from outside the hut? Easily, the very back. I think this is the right spot.
Take that!
Look closely just here. In the screen at the back of the hut, you can see the effects of a blade having been forced through the reeds.
No, I can't. I can't see any such thing.
It's true that the hut in question had 4 walls, as you'd expect. However, by parting the reeds, a knife blade could easily penetrate them. This is extraordinary! Yes. The true culprit actually stabbed the victim from outside the beach hut. And of everyone present at the scene, there was only one person who could have done that. Only one person who was directly outside the hut when Miss Brett was killed. Right in Minimomo-san, it could only have been you.
This preposterous idea leaves me almost speechless. Just look at the photograph again. The victim lies almost exactly in the center of the beach hut, does she not? Are we to assume, as part of this farcical scenario, that the assailant was a knife thrower?
Objection!
No, of course not.
We're not?
If you recall the testimony of the defendant about the events just before the victim's death, inside she confronted Miss Brett, but she sat on the stool at the back, where she then...
A stool?
Have another look at the photograph. The slit in the read screen would align perfectly with the back of a person who was sitting on the stool.
My word! So, in fact, the victim was...
Killed while sitting on that stool by a stab wound to the back delivered through the read screen. Having been attacked, Miss Brett rose to her feet instinctively. But then, unable to speak, she collapsed on the floor in the middle of the hut, before the defendant, Membami-san's appalled eyes. And that, Your Excellency, is the truth of what happened on the beach that day. By your silence, Menimemo-san, I take it that you don't deny the charge.
This is absurd!
That will do. It would appear that we have a tacit admission of guilt from the witness. Accordingly, this court has successfully established the truth of this matter, which means that the defendant, Membami-san, is innocent of the crime.
Oh, thank goodness. I finally made him cave. I must say, I've never been more proud.
No, this can't be. The Algae clan can't. What of my growth? My growth of hope? It wasn't all an apparition. I can't accept this. I won't.
I see no reason to put for the continuance of this trial. I would therefore move to conclude proceedings by delivering my...
Well, this is all very convenient. This is how the highest court in our mighty empire delivers justice, is it? Suppressing well-meaning citizens' freedom to speak and branding them as criminals. But we've established that the victim was stabbed from outside the hut, through the reed screen walls. And no one but you was in place at the time to have his hand on the hilt of the blade. It's a perfectly logical deduction. So, your argument hinges on the location of whoever stabbed the Englishwoman, does it? Well, it seems a little irrelevant now. Irrelevant? Where she was stabbed, how she was stabbed? It doesn't really matter. I mean, whether she was stabbed at all makes no difference, if you think about it. After all, this trial's already shown the whole thing hinges on something else. What are you talking about? Brace yourself, little man. I'm talking about the fact that everything's changed. Because of the dirt you dug up. What? Enough obscurity. Explain yourself, witness. What's to explain? I'm talking about the poison, of course.
The poison?
Let's ask the professor for a comment on the situation, shall we? I understand that that deadly poison you are developing was stolen from your laboratory, correct? And it's been shown that this poison was administered to the victim, Miss Brett. Is that right?
That is correct.
The unusual constriction of the victim's pupils are a sure sign this particular poison was used. I see. So, presumably that means that the victim already had the poison in her body before she was stabbed? Given the pupils were clearly constricted, it is highly likely, yes. If she had been dead already, the poison could not have circulated in her blood.
How refreshing to hear the argument of a metropolitan mind. Precisely. It matters not a jot who stabbed whom in whose back with whose blade. Because, quite simply, the Englishwoman's life was taken not by knife, but by the poison.
Objection!
But that can be explained by the poison being on the blade, as I already...
Objection!
Forgotten already, have we, yokel? During these very proceedings, the laboratory of the professor at your side assisted in proving that the blade of the weapon used to attack the victim had no trace of poison on it whatsoever.
So, let me get this down. The facts as skillfully established by the defense attorney in this trial turn out to be a headline-making red herring. Is that about right? Well...
Order. But where does this leave us? How, in that case, did the poison come to enter the victim's body?
There is an undeniably obvious answer to that. The lady most likely imbibed it. You mean she drank it? Have another look at the photographic here. As you can see, a bottle of carbonated water and a glass had been knocked onto the sandy floor of the beach hut. The poison could have been slipped into either. So somebody made Miss Brett drink it.
Well, what do you know? Look at those dashing eyes. This will make a great front-page shot. Hey, why the bewitching stare? After all, I'm the last person you should be looking at.
It would make no sense at all that I poisoned the woman, would it? I mean, that's just been established already.
Hold it!
Established? What are you talking about? Don't tell me you've forgotten. That's a little hard to believe, given that the person who established it was you. Me? What on earth does he mean?
Ooh, let me capture those wide eyes. This is prime press fodder, this is. It would seem that this trial is not destined to end yet after all. I hereby call upon the witness to give further testimony.
That's great, that is. Let me get a shot of that magnificent beard, Your Excellency.
You claim it to be impossible that you were the one responsible for administering the poison to the victim. You will explain to the court that in your testimony the basis upon which you make such a claim.
I'm a journal and I'm a man. I've never tried to run or hide from anything in my life. And I'm not about to stop now, because that's mini-memoism. For a brief moment, I thought I had illuminated the truth, but it slipped right back into obscurity again. Just where is this trial going to take us? Alright. Let's do this. Complete innocence. Oh yes, I stabbed the Englishwoman, and it's the very fact that proves I'm innocent. Because why would I have bothered to stab the woman if I'd already poisoned her? When I'd heard the student girl and that pompous murderer arguing, it got my goat. If the courts weren't going to punish Miss Brett for what she did, someone else would have to see justice done. Yeah? So you admitted then that and everything had happened as I described. That you're the one who stabbed Miss Brett in the back through the reed screen. You can blame this miserable country of ours. A country that bows to the pressure of foreign powers and lets murderers walk free. What kind of future can a country like that have? That's why I did it. I did what our pathetic leaders didn't have the guts to do. Slap bang in the middle of that charming lady's back, I plunged the blade of sweet justice right in there. As someone who spends his life seeing that the truth is told, I feel really awful about giving false information in my testimony before. But as it turns out, there was somebody else who had it in for the victim and got to her before me. That's right, you guessed it. That pretty little student girl. Now there's a woman after my own heart. You're implicating Ray again? She's the one who gave the poison to the Englishwoman and ended her pitiful existence. And suddenly, snap! This journal here is off the hook.
The argument is sound, certainly. If the witness had administered the poison himself, he need only have waited for it to take effect. Subsequently stabbing the victim in the back would have been entirely nonsensical.
And therefore, this reporter had nothing to do with the poisoning. Yes, it's all quite logical.
That's right, it is. Logical and true. I'm glad you all have seen the light. Justice at last. This is unbelievable. And after I'd made so much progress in proving his guilt, is he gonna get away with it now? Think of Kazuma-sama and Naruhodo-san. They never stopped looking for a way forward until the judge's final gavel.
Very well then, counsel. Proceed with what I assume to be your final cross-examination in this trial.
Yes, Your Excellency. Alright. I can already see a part I do want to press into. Namely, this. Why did it get your goat so bad?
Hold it!
What exactly were they arguing about? About what happened in that restaurant 9 months ago, that's what. The student girl was laying into the Englishwoman for killing her beloved mentor, Dr. Wilson.
Yes, John H. Wilson, a professor of medicine, invited here from England by Professor Mikotoba, no less.
Right, but the Englishwoman had just jeered.
Her case was to be heard by the British Consular Court in Shanghai. However, there is little doubt she would simply have been acquitted and sent back to her homeland a free woman.
It was eating that student girl up inside. You know, you could see it. I really felt for her. I can't. I can't stand here and listen to this tripe. Ray.
Young girl, you stand accused here. You can't just blurt out whenever you feel like it.
No, you can't. Sorry, but I'm in the middle of some very important testimony here. Just keep quiet and listen. But this awful man is making all of this up. Susato, please, you have to make them listen. Who?
Return to the dock at once, Membami-san. We are in the middle of a cross-examination.
Hold it!
Your Excellency, please, I implore you. That journalist is clearly not a trustworthy witness. Exactly. He's a filthy, rotten, black-hearted, bigoted, dirty, great peeping Tom. Whoa, take it easy there. Please, I really think the court should hear what the defendant has to say.
Your Excellency, I see no need whatsoever to entertain the accused's remarks.
I will grant the request of the defense.
But, Your Excellency...
This is likely to be the final cross-examination of these proceedings. As such, I believe it would be ill-advised to stifle the defendant's obvious concerns. So, whilst recognizing that this contravenes regular protocol, I hereby call upon the defendant to speak.
Oh. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Alright. It was nothing to do with Dr. Wilson. We were discussing the stolen poison.
Hold it!
Okay. The stolen poison that killed the victim, you mean? I suspected her of being the one to steal it. I mean, just think about how she killed Dr. Wilson.
That's true.
Additionally, Miss Brett certainly had knowledge of that new poison. But surely it will be no easy task to steal a highly secret toxin developed for the government. Indeed, all visitors to the laboratory are thoroughly searched when they leave. Even if a thief managed to avoid being seen by myself or a colleague, getting the poison out would be very difficult. Yes, that's true. I pressed Professor Mikotoba until he agreed to show me the poison when I visited his laboratory. But, as I left, I was searched from top to tail. Miss Brent rather bluntly revealed the existence of the toxin you've been developing, you see. And since Suseki-san expressed such an interest in it, I felt unable to refuse. Obviously, I gave nothing away, other than the fact that it was an extremely potent substance. I'm very ashamed of myself. It's just that I've had a singularly terrible experience with the deadly poison. I wanted to look at my own enemy in the eye. Surely you can understand that. To find out if my suspicions were true, I confronted Miss Brett about the poison. I told her that if there were to be an incident involving it somehow, it wouldn't just be the university. The military would be dragged into it. The whole government even. It would be a complete disaster. And how did Miss Brett respond to your concerns? She just curled those beautiful lips of hers and said she didn't know the first thing about it. In English, actually. Ah, yes. Membami-san, one small question if you don't mind. I do mind. Can't you see I'm busy? Oh, wait, did he say... Oh, he said Memo-san, not Membami-san. Oh, whatever. Clearly, you were outside the beach hut listening in whilst the defendant and Miss Brett were conversing. Presumably then, it was you who wrote this article about which you'd heard? Exclusive. Deadly poison stolen from Yume University, from Yume Medical Research Laboratory. The story was published in this morning's edition of Shoyu News. The details are too accurate for it to have been written by anyone else. Sorry. Didn't mean to do that. Whatever. Don't know what you're talking about. Yes. Look at this. The entire article is almost what I said to Miss Brett, word for word. Well, Memo-san. As a journo, and as a citizen of the free country, I don't have to reveal my sources. That's a founding principle of Memoism. Father's clearly right about this. That reporter did write that article, and he based it on what he overheard from outside the hut. Yeah? So that's what it was all about. You were trying to cover up on the fact that you were listening. That's why you came up with that stinking story about me arguing with her. Shut up! My stories never stink. Look, whatever you say, little girl, it doesn't alter the facts. Your Excellency, there's something I want to say, and I want it to go on record. Very well. You may amend your formal testimony. The point is, if you'd poison someone, there'd be no reason to go and stab the person as well. Actually, that'd be an easy way to deal with this. If we go on this new statement, well, let's see. Why would we stab them? Huh. Assaulted. Occurs in minutes. Let me see something for a second here. Let me go through this again. Why would... Oh, same thing, okay. Why would you about to stab? She already poisoned her. Let me see. Entering from a poison-laced blade. I think it would be this one, because then you could be like, then what's it called? he could like trap us. Maybe he could say it would make us think, oh, it was the blade when it wasn't. That's what I'm going with. Yeah, because it said it would make us think it was from a blade when it might not have been.
Objection!
Yeah, there it is. Well, I can think of one reason. What? But before I explain, I'd like you to confirm something for the court. Did you glean all the information from this newspaper article from what you overheard outside the hut? Of course you did. There can be no question of that. After all, when we were all in the laboratory together, we were all told that it was a terrible toxin. And there is one more important fact to consider. According to the witness, Mambami-san's verbal attack against the victim began as soon as she entered the hut. In other words, it would have been impossible for her to have slipped the poison into Miss Brett's drink.
Objection!
Where are you going with this, counsel?
Manny Memo-san has made it quite clear that he'd observed every single thing that happened in the beach hut. If the defendant had somehow found an opportunity, this man would have seen it. Which means that Miss Brett couldn't have imbibed the poison whilst the defendant was present. In fact, it must have been administered to her before Mambami-san entered the hut.
Yes, very articulately put.
When I walked into the hut, I immediately started to press Miss Brett about the poison. At which point, Manny Memo-san overheard some worrying information.
Worrying information? What worrying information?
The information which he subsequently included in this newspaper article, namely, that the poison was being developed in strict secrecy and that it couldn't be readily obtained. Absolutely. In fact, that's quite an understatement. What? Oh. Okay, sorry. Thought it was something. The only possible place it could have come from is my lab. And furthermore, anyone afflicted by the poison would exhibit telltale signs in death. The extreme constriction of the pupils, yes, it's quite stark when you see it. There are other poisons that show similar symptoms, but not among new substances that are undetectable. In other words, it would be clear that the victim's life has been ended by the use of this particular poison, which would reduce the number of suspects to only a handful of people. Everyone in my laboratory is aware of the unique properties of the toxin we've been developing. None of them would be foolish enough to attempt to use it for some nefarious deed. Mambami-san being no exception. Therefore, we can conclude that whoever administered this unique poison to the victim was a layperson, unaware of its telltale properties.
In other words, someone like you. Right, and Manny Memo.
Oh, that makes sense, okay. So literally, he wasn't aware that the poison was so easily detectable, so he stabbed her in the back to try and draw them off the scent. Or off the path. It was you who stole the poison from the laboratory that day, and it was you who administered it to the unwitting victim. But you quickly realized that was a terrible mistake, because the poison caused such unusual symptoms and was so traceable. As you listened in from the far side of the beach hut's thin walls, you learned of these facts, but you'd already given the victim the poison at that point. It was too late. So you hatched a plan to disguise your mistake. A plan that involved stabbing the victim in the back through the reed screen.
Objection!
But what good could that possibly do?
Isn't it obvious, counsel? The plan was to kill Miss Brett before the poison could take effect.
Once in the blood, the poison causes the onset of pupil constriction. But he had hoped to precipitate the victim's death before that happened, hadn't he?
Exactly. Oh, okay. Because without any revealing signs of the new secret poison's use, no one would have ever suspected.
This is extraordinary.
Yes, the effects of the poison meant it would be too easily identified, so the killer had to mask its use, which he attempted to do by plunging a knife into the middle of the victim's back.
Order, order. The argument presented is sound. The court is satisfied that it warrants consideration. Does the prosecution have a counter-argument it wishes to put forward?
Well, there are a number of... yes, I counter completely.
Objection!
The prosecution's evasive response clearly shows that, in much the same way as he nurtures the remnants of his topknot, he is clinging to lost hope.
Lost? Oh!
Yeah? Who has an objection? You again? We got you. Give up.
You pathetic, useless fallen samurai!
Fallen? Who are you calling fallen?
I don't need a counter-argument.
What are you talking about?
It should be blatantly obvious. I stole the poison, you say? Gave it to the victim, you say? Stabbed her, you say?
Lots of fine theories.
But I don't need a counter-argument, because you don't have an argument yourself. Where's your evidence?
Yes, you make it all sound so plausible, don't you? But without evidence, it means nothing.
Whereas I base my news on facts. Facts? What do you mean? Explain yourself.
I mean, what the professor said earlier in this trial. It's all here.
In my many memos, every word, every slip of the tongue, all noted. That's what the Show You News is famous for. It's the power of the printed word.
Be no easy task to steal a secret toxin. They're thoroughly searched. Oh, so getting the poison out is difficult. How's that then?
Blown the story wide open?
See, I write in many memo, a mere reporter for the Show You News.
Couldn't possibly have stolen that poison from the professor's laboratory. But there can't be any question of it. He must have stolen the poison that day. He stole it and used it to kill. Sorry, and if that's the case, as you've identified, the poison itself is the definitive evidence we need. Because whoever stole it from the laboratory that day is the true culprit here.
What's your point, you annoyingly handsome country bumpkin?
My point is this. There is one way that you, Many Memo-san, could have stolen the poison that day.
I have heard enough verbal conjecture now, thank you. What the court must be shown is evidence. What proof do you have that this witness stole the poison on the day in question?
Well, that's easy. If we look at the fountain pen, unscrew this bad boy here, and unscrew this one, the barrel, there's nothing in the reservoir. Why? That's weird. You'd expect a pen to have ink. Yeah. Something wrong. There's no ink in there. Right. I wonder why. Well, what would happen if, for example, this was stuck into the poison thing without anyone noticing? Someone could easily suck up poison for use later. Anyway, let's just go through this. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting at here. I think Do we have to go over the reservoir? No. Okay. You draw. Okay, never mind. So it says you draw ink up through the nub, so someone could easily have done that with poison. So,
Take that!
we use the fountain pen. The proof, Your Excellency, is in this fountain pen.
A fountain pen? How could that possibly be relevant?
These magical pens somehow seem to have enough ink to write thousands of kanji characters. I believe they are arrived in our country for the first time some 15 years ago now.
Bah! I swear by a weasel hair calligraphy brush and nothing else. These newfangled pens are merely a fad.
Well, as a forward-thinking man of words, obviously I love my fountain pen. Suck up a soup scone of... Is it soup scone is pronounced? Suck up a soup scone of sumptuous ink, and one's work is washed with words in the blink of an eye. That's right. Fountain pens have a small reservoir built in the barrel, into which ink is sucked up through the nib of the pen in order to write with later.
What does all this talking of sucked up ink have? Ah!
And just as it's possible to suck up ink into the reservoir, it's also possible to eject it through the nib again, of course.
My word. Can this really be?
Well, Manuel-san? When you saw the deadly poison before your eyes in the laboratory that day, you used your fountain pen, your very lifeblood, to steal some of it, didn't you? By siphoning the poison up through the nib and into the pen's reservoir.
Objection!
More absurdity! That never happened!
True, we've heard that there were procedures in the place to prevent theft like this from the laboratory. But would anyone have thought to look inside a fountain pen of all places? No, I'm a little ashamed to say that for fear of offending our guests, such a detailed search would not have been conducted.
Well, this is quite startling, I must say.
I remind the court that this pen was found in the clutches of the victim when she died. In other words, it was dropped at the scene by Memo-san. So, the crucial question is, when exactly was the pen dropped?
Are you suggesting...
The natural conclusion is that in your haste to act whilst the victim was distracted for a moment, you dropped the pen after you emptied the poison from it into her glass.
Objection!
There could be any number of alternative explanations. For example, the witness could have been using his pen to write down details of his conversation with the victim. And when shocked by one of her outrageous answers, the pen fell from his quivering hand.
Objection!
No, that can't be. If it was, how do you explain why the pen was devoid of ink?
What?
As you can see for yourself if you examine the evidence, there would appear to be no ink present in the reservoir. What newspaper reporter goes to interview someone with nothing in his pen? Oh, the pen was dropped after the poison had filled its reservoir. That filled its reservoir had been emptied into the victim's glass.
Witness, what do you have to say in your defense? So, this is how our modern justice system works, is it? So what if the ink in my pen runs dry? So what if my pencil snaps? I can always claw my way back into the game. I have plenty in reserve.
Yeah? Just gonna throw your pens at everyone?
You claim I sucked poison up into my pen? That's wild speculation. Nothing more. If you thought you could bring down a fine upsetting citizen with a trick like that, think again.
It looks as though we're going to take one final decisive blow to finish this matter. As I see it, The situation is now very simple. It rests upon whether or not this witness did indeed steal the poison on the day in question. And therefore, it all depends on whether or not the defense can prove that he did with evidence.
No such evidence could possibly exist.
Objection!
Many Memo-san, this is how our modern justice system works.
What?
In the courtroom, evidence is everything. Something you would do well to remember. Because we are well past the point of speculation at this stage, I assure you. Very well then. I call upon the defense to present the aforementioned evidence. This is it then. This will be the final piece in the puzzle. The defense can prove by means of this item that the witness's pen was used easily. The Regent. We never used it, plus
Take that!
we could just use the pen and test it out.
Counsel, what is this bottle?
This bottle contains a unique chemical reagent that can identify the poison in question.
Yes.
That poison is an entirely new synthesis of... Sorry, I'm getting tired, you can see. Yes, that poison is an entirely new synthesis of alkaloids developed by my colleagues and I. It would be impossible to detect traces of it by any other method. Or, from another perspective, simply with this chemical reagent, anybody at all could check for traces of the poison.
A regent? What?
One drop of the contents of this bottle on the tip of your fountain pen, Memo-san, is all it will take to solve this case beyond all reasonable doubt. No, you can't. I won't. Your crimes are bad enough, but at least know when to admit defeat. Your Excellency, the defense requests permission to carry out the test on the fountain pen at once. Yeah, it's gonna swing your...
This isn't my fault. The Empire drove me to this, trying to hold his head high in a civilized nation, but bowing head to every foreign power's will. I took up arms. I fought tirelessly.
Yeah. Susato, with me. I'm there. Did I do it right? That was a Susato takedown, wasn't it? Not quite. That was a Ryutaro takedown. The instant the first drop of the Regent touched the nib of the fountain pen, it was clear to everyone present. When I saw it there in the lab, with the poison, the devil got hold of me and I decided to do it on a whim. I excused myself and emptied all the ink down the sink in the bathroom, washing the reservoir out carefully. And then you waited for an opportunity to suck up some of the poison, didn't you? Into your fountain pen. Yes, that's right.
Answer me one thing, Memo-san. Why did you steal it? For what purpose?
Isn't it obvious? To find out what it was made of and expose it in an article. I mean, it was a secret project after all. Too juicy for a journal like me to pass up.
Then, why did the Englishwoman end up dead?
I went into the hut, intending to quiz her on the situation. That's all. As a reporter. I known a known killer, enjoying the full freedom, evading justice by leaving the country. I told her what I thought about it.
And she just laughed in my face.
Oh? What's this? A Far Eastern caveman purporting to practice journalism? Really? You must learn the difference between reporting and listening at doorways. You ignorant plebeian. What? What did you call me? This country, with its pretensions to a justice system, to a free press, it's really very depressing. You see our superior ways in the West, yet you lack the mental capacity to emulate them. Get out of here, you elf. Get out, and crawl back into the cave you came from. Yeah? That is when I remembered about the deadly poison I happened to have in my pen at the time.
What a terrible tale.
In my head, I knew I should have got out of there as soon as possible, but I couldn't. I couldn't let her get away with what she'd done, when she clearly had no remorse at all. I suppose it was my journal spirit getting all fired up. I'd like to ask you something. Yes. You often talk about justice. But surely as a journalist, you could have used other means to deliver the justice you sought?
There's no justice in the press.
Sorry?
After the trial 9 months ago, I kept digging and digging to find out what had happened in that courtroom. And finally, I discovered the truth.
It was a cover-up. That's what it was. Cover-up? What do you mean?
I would remind you of your position, witness. Be careful of what you say.
Oh, come on! Doesn't it strike you as strange? We're suddenly not allowed to convict a foreign national? Consular jurisdiction should never have come into it. And yet, that puffed-up Englishwoman was going to sail away into the sunset a free woman. The only possible explanation is that, behind the scenes, some deal had gone down between Britain and Japan. What sort of deal? I'd done my research, dug up all the dirt. It was all ready to be published.
But you know what happened? The editor just tore the article up.
He came under pressure from the government, you mean?
If our government is going to let criminals walk free, if they're going to crush the free press, then what choice do I have but to see that justice is done myself?
Let's not forget, Memo-san, that you committed murder yourself, and you tried to lay the blame at the defendant's door. I'm sorry, but you're no better than Giselle Brett.
What?
The truth is, you have no right to talk about justice at all. I suppose...
It would appear that we've reached a conclusion in this trial at last. Counsel for the defense, Ryotaro Naruhodo.
Oh! Yes. Sorry, Your Excellency. Just musing in a manly way over here.
It's almost unbelievable that this is your first experience of the Supreme Court. It was an excellent performance. In truth, it very much reminded me of your cousin's exploits.
Oh? Naruhodo's... Ryunosuke, you mean?
The way he handled the trial 9 months ago, and the way you handled this one. It gives me hope that we are genuinely entering a new era of justice in this land.
That's very flattering, Your Excellency.
Hearing the defense you put forward today made me feel most keenly that the future of our justice system will be forged by you and your contemporaries.
Thank you.
So, Prosecutor Auchi, do you have any final thoughts?
Prosecutor Auchi?
Aye. Taketsuchi of the Ouchi clan have been bested by a callow youth not once now, but twice. If there were any shred of my former self left, it has withered and died here today.
Gosh, your journey to cultural enlightenment sure took a while, didn't it?
Silence! Rather than living on in shame, I will end it all now with this blade. For that is the true path to Ouchiism.
Ouchiism? One hopes that that's the only way in which he'll be modeling himself after the witness.
Sprig of my topknot, the time is right for farewell. Hope is lost forever. Taketsuchi.
Now, in regard to the defendant, Rei Membami-san.
Yes, Your Excellency?
I have reached my final verdict. I hereby find you not guilty.
Alright. That was a fun case, wasn't it?
Court is adjourned.
"13th of August, 2:38 p.m. 2:38 p.m. The Supreme Court of Judicature, Defendant's Antechamber. 3. It's over. My heart is still pounding in my chest, though. It's all I can do just to stay standing. Lawyers have such great responsibility, such a great burden to bear. Don't they, Naruhodo-san? Susato! Susato! Thank you. Thank you so much. You were so dashing in the... Rei and Father. Honestly, I'm so touched by everything you've... Oh, no. I think I'm gonna cry. It wasn't easy, but together we made it. I was on the verge of tears at the end, too. The only reason I'm still here is because of you. Oh, no. I can't take all the credit. It took courage to tell the truth in there. You did wonderfully, Rei. So I would have to say that the congratulations belong to you. Susato, don't be so standoffish. Sorry? We're friends, equals, and the trial's over. So no more of this formal super-humility nonsense. It's time to celebrate with swagger, to throw caution to the wind. Caution to the... what? I'm the great defense lawyer, Ryotaro Naruhodo, and I'm taking you to a milk bar tomorrow. Or something. Right. I see. I'll, think about it, Rei. At any rate, we really knocked the wind out of that horrid man, and it felt so good. Yes, it was satisfying. It really was. Isn't there anybody else we could throw together?
I hope you're not looking at me, Rei.
Oh, my goodness. No, of course not. Of course not. There it is at last. Rei's lovely smile. You fought for your friend to the very last. As your father, I'm extremely proud of you. Defense Attorney Ryotaro Naruhodo. Thank you. Oh, thank you. But I couldn't have done it with your help. Or without your help. Anyway, it's time to bid farewell to Ryotaro, I think. I shall miss him in a way, but it's back to Susato Mikotoba now. So, I'll never see him again then? What a terrible shame.
What? What is happening?
Ah, Soseki-san and Inspector Osanaga. I do hope you've been keeping well.
Is that really you?
Yes, I had to change my appearance for, well, obvious reasons, I hope. But it's me, Susato Mikotoba.
I don't. So dashing, so divine. No. Doubly dashing. Yes, and devilishly divine. Just look at you. I had no idea, Miss Susato-san Esquiress, that you were locum student Naruhodo-san Esquire's cousin. Astonishingly astounding Ace Attorney.
Poor Soseki-san, so confused. I still remember the first time I ever met him. He was in a prison cell in London. What an extraordinary conundrum it was that the unwitting student from Japan found himself embroiled in. But after Naruhodo-san's skillful defense, that's 2 L's in skillful, at the Old Bailey, Soseki-san was free to return to Japan. And now he seems to have earned himself great fame as an author.
I'm stunned. That's a truly impressive disguise. Even I had no idea that I'm Chief Inspector at a police bureau who came up with Mr. Turtle, no less.
I'm not sure you should be admitting to that, Inspector.
Amazing. You're a woman of many faces, I see.
Just 2, really. And this was a once-in-a-lifetime event. I hope. Oh, I'm not a patch on you, though, Inspector.
Well, I am a professional, of course.
I do worry about Inspector Osanaga sometimes. I really do. 9 months ago, when he appeared here at the Supreme Court to testify, he was undercover, disguised as the head waiter of a restaurant. And then, on the steamship to Great Britain, of course, disguised as a sailor to keep us safe on the journey. Though, that didn't help you, did it, Kazuma-sama?
From my perspective, I have to admit that I have mixed feelings about all this. I mean, now the truth has been lost forever.
What do you mean?
I'm talking about the murder that the Englishwoman committed at the end of last year.
Ah, yes. It was an English doctor she killed, as I understand it.
Dr. John H. Wilson, yes. The man I invited to Japan personally.
The mystery is...
Why did she kill him? And now that the culprit herself is dead, we'll probably never know the answer.
On the voyage to Great Britain, we had a most unexpected encounter with Mr. Herlock Sholmes, the great detective, I mean.
Yes, I remember Mr. Sholmes well, of course.
Ah, my arch-nemesis, how lightly you utter his name. Well, according to the stories published about him in the Adventures of Herlock Sholmes, the detective once had a partner who helped him solve crimes, a best friend. And that man was an exceptional doctor of medicine by the name of Dr. John H. Wilson.
What? Dr. Wilson?
I just can't believe that it's a coincidence. I think that the English doctor of medicine killed here in Japan 9 months ago must have been the friend and partner of Mr. Sholmes. And if that's really true, then the poor girl will never see her beloved father again.
As you know, I traveled to Great Britain once myself to study. It was around the time you were born.
Yes, grandmother told me about it.
On returning to Japan, I took up my professorship at the Imperial Yume University. But I also serve another role, as an advisor to the government on diplomatic affairs.
Yes, I was aware of that as well.
In that case, I'm sure you understand that there are some confidential matters I cannot divulge to you.
Could you just tell me one thing? Why did you summon me back to Japan? It's been 2 months now since I returned. When I left England, it was because an urgent telegram had arrived from Japan. It said that you'd collapsed with a high fever, and you were growing weaker by the day. What? Where did that news come from? That's what I'd like to know. Because after that long sea voyage, I found you in just fine health, Father. Was there something in Great Britain you perceived might inconvenience me in some way? Or harm me? That's really the only explanation I can think of.
Dear me. Do you reserve your most cutting glares for your father, Susato? I'm sorry, my dear. I simply can't...
Memo-san. So, one throw isn't enough for you?
I've got one last thing to say before they take me away. Professor! Me? I know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on. In that visiting student's fate.
Visiting students?
Giselle Brett, you mean? No, not her. The student of law who left for Great Britain 8 months ago.
What? Student of law? He must mean... Kazuma-sama! What are you talking about? What does any of this have to do with Kazuma-sama?
Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. They don't know that the guy never made it to England, that he died on that steamship, and they don't never... Well, I didn't expect to find him in here. What were you officers playing at? Terribly sorry, Your Excellency.
Yeah? So judges in Japan back in the day would just flip prisoners after they try and escape?
I was coming to tell you that the rickshaw has arrived, Eugen, and it's a good job I came by. Yes, thank you for dealing with him, and I'll be there shortly.
Oh, Your Excellency.
The trial's over. I'm not Your Excellency anymore. Merely your father's friend, Seishiro Jigoku. And may I say that since I saw you last, you seem to have taken on a more dashing appearance. Susato.
Yeah, so the judge knew all along? Did you know all along? From the start of the trial?
A judge sees everything, Susato. I couldn't let you take the risk. If Seishiro here hadn't known, then he'd recognized you. So I had a word with him in his ear beforehand, as an old friend. So, Seishiro, shall we? Yes. Having ruled on that case, we now have various diplomatic issues to address.
Before you go, Father.
Sorry, my dear. We shall have to return to our earlier conversation at a later date. But well done again, both of you. You did admirably.
Oh, thank you very much.
What do you think of my Seishiro sling, eh? It's been a while since I sent a man flying like that. Ha 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 ha!
Whatever could Father be hiding from me? About Giselle Brett? About Dr. Wilson? And now it seems, according to the reporter, about Kazuma-sama. I'm gonna have to bring this up with Father sometime, when nobody else is around. Judicial Assistant Mikotoba-san Esquires, could I have a word? Oh, yes, of course, Soseki-san. What is it? I think perhaps it could be fate that we're meeting again like this now. You see, there's something I need to tell you. Oh? I believe that it may be related to the reason why your father summoned you back from England. This I have to hear. Please, Soseki-san, tell me at once. I will! As you know, my time in England was terrible. Cursed, I have no doubt. Such awful things I was embroiled in. Thank goodness local student Naruhodo-san Esquire stepped in. After he secured my freedom, I couldn't wait to get on a ship back here to my homeland. Having arrived in Japan, I submitted a report of my experiences to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The next thing I knew, I had a visitor. It was your father, Professor Mikotoba. He wanted to ask me about all sorts of things about my report. My father? He seemed to be especially taken with a particular part of the report. Anyway, he left eventually, having thoroughly quizzed me. But it was the very next day that he sent the telegram to you, asking you to return to Japan. What was it then? The particular part that my father was interested in? I don't really know exactly. But do you remember them? Those two terrible cases I was caught up in? Of course, I can never forget. Your father seemed to concern himself mainly with the second case. The second one? You mean the one Mr. Sholmes forbade any of us to talk about in the public? Which is why the only case involving you that any member of the public is aware of is the first. Well, I don't care. I don't have to listen to what that dastardly detective says. Anyway, the point is, it seems that case somehow holds the key to all those curious unanswered questions. That horrific, hideous, heinous case, the case of the haunted lodgings. Yeah? There was a whole other case we didn't get to find out about? That case somehow caused my father to summon me urgently back to Japan? I thought that the whole business was over, but it seems I was wrong. Perhaps that was only the start. Perhaps the story is not yet told. Alright, so, with that being said... Oh, okay.
So, the mystery of that English woman's death is solved, thank goodness. And having stood in the Supreme Court now, I think I can comprehend a little better. How you must be feeling as you fight for people's freedom in a foreign land, Naruhodo-san. But actually, I'm writing to you today because of another matter. I met Soseki-san and we talked about that second case he was involved in. Father has said nothing to me, but I feel certain of it. That case holds the key to some great unsolved mystery. My notes on the case should still be in the office, tucked away at the back of the shelves on the left. Perhaps you might like to look over them again. Today, for the first time this year, it feels as though summer has arrived. The sky is a brilliant blue. It makes me long to see you again. Yours, Susato.
Well, yeah, I guess because this is the second game, we have, more voice acting. I mean, it's the same thing. It's maybe like, what, a few scenes with voice acting in it? But, yeah. Anyways, let us save our progress. I guess we're going into number... Well, I guess I'll save at number 4, because I don't want to have to do all this over again. Or, yeah, 4, okay. Let's do that for now. Alright. Alright, so, I guess I'll be switching Susato's voice back to what Rei's voice is, that soft, kind-hearted spoken voice. So yeah, that will be Susato's voice, as it was before. My normal voice will be for Ryunosuke, for with ease. And, I think I'll try and practice the, other voices of the other characters, like Iris, the old Bailey Judge, Van Zeeks. Whatever. Anyways, sorry, I'm a little tired. I kind of made a mistake in recording this, and it was around the part where Ouchie did his whole thing about cutting his hair. Originally I did this yesterday, and I recorded everything without realizing that I had paused the recording at that part, so the other rest part didn't actually record, so I'm just, doing this today to kind of finish off. So yeah, it might be a bit weird noticing that all of a sudden I'm now full of energy. But yeah. Anyways, next time we are going to get into Case 2, The Memoirs of the Clouded Kokoro, the other case that Soseki was involved in. And might I say, actually, before we continue, I like the case art in these a lot better than in the previous game. I mean, don't get me wrong, the previous game was nice, but look at this. I mean, you have this, the case 1, there's case 2, which, meh, I mean, it's fine. There's this, which, oh yeah, the name, yeah, The Return of the Great Departed Soul. Literally, that's like a episode name of an anime or something. I don't know. Twisted Karma and His Last Bow. Like, and even this one, the last episode, the Resolve of Ryunosuke Naruhodo, right? Literally, like, it's just the curse of writing. Seriously, that's really nice. Anyways, that is it for this episode, and, yeah, I will see you all in the next video.